Okay, so you wanted to go deep on faith and how it all ties into personal success, right?
Right.
You sent over this YouTube sermon, How to Have Faith for Everything Every Day in Life,
Yeah.
by Bishop David Oyedepo.
Mm-hmm.
He's pretty major in Nigeria.
Huge.
Even if you don't agree with everything he says, you can't deny his influence.
Absolutely.
Millions in his congregation.
Oh, yeah.
So his take on faith, it's definitely worth looking at.
Yeah.
So today, let's try to unpack some of his core ideas,
Okay.
especially the whole thing about faith leading to dominion,
Right.
which is a word he uses a lot
Oh, yeah.
in all these different areas of life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what really strikes me is how Oyedepo doesn't frame faith as some kind of vague, airy-fairy concept.
Right.
He describes it as like the most powerful force in the entire universe.
Yeah.
Like even more powerful than psychology
Right.
or any belief system that we humans cook up.
Uh-huh.
And he really hammers this home
Yeah.
by bringing in all these stories from the Bible,
Right.
you know, like calming storms.
Or healing the sick.
Sure.
He's using these examples to show that faith is active.
Yeah.
It's like a force of nature that produces tangible results.
It's not just, you know, in your head.
Yeah, he definitely ties faith to action.
Yeah.
He even had that line, if thou canst believe, all things are possible to him that believeth.
Yeah.
It's almost like he's saying belief is this key
Mm-hmm.
that unlocks this huge reservoir of potential.
Right.
But then he goes even further,
Yeah,
right?
right, yeah.
It's not just about hoping for good things to happen.
Uh-huh.
It's about, and I'm quoting here,
Yeah.
committing God to act
Wow.
based on his promises in the Bible.
Based on the promises, yeah.
There's this really intense line where he says, whatever this book says, God's integrity is committed by our faith to make it happen because he cannot deny himself.
Right.
He's basically saying that true biblical faith,
Yeah.
it's not passive.
Yeah, it's about action.
It's about holding God to his word.
Right.
Almost like it's a binding contract.
It's a pretty bold interpretation, right?
Very bold. Yeah.
I'm curious what our listener thinks about this whole idea of holding God accountable.
Right.
Does it feel empowering?
Right.
Or maybe a little presumptuous?
Yeah.
But let's move on a bit.
Okay.
Oyedepo also talks about faith as this way to tap into divine power.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
He uses the example of the woman who was healed
Oh, yeah.
just by touching Jesus' garment. He sees this as more than just a miracle.
Yeah.
It's proof that faith can be like a conduit.
Right.
It's not just about believing.
No.
It's about actively connecting
Right.
to this source of power
Yeah.
that can totally change your situation.
Yeah. Huh?
It's like he's saying faith is this bridge
Yeah.
between our human limits
Yeah.
and God's limitless ability.
Right.
It's really interesting because that leads into his whole idea of partnership with God.
Yeah.
It's like he sees faith as a way to team up with the divine,
To join forces.
which then gives people the ability to do what would normally be impossible.
Right.
He even talks about Moses confronting Pharaoh
Yeah.
and parting the Red Sea as an example.
That's a big one.
And that's a perfect example of what he means by dominion.
Right.
It's not just about personal success.
Right.
It's about overcoming these huge obstacles
Yeah.
and shaping the world around you.
I mean, parting the Red Sea, come on.
Yeah.
That's not just a personal win.
Exactly.
That's reshaping reality itself.
It's like he's saying that through faith, we become co-creators with God.
Interesting.
And speaking of reshaping reality,
Okay.
Oyedepo also talks about faith as a shield,
Right.
a way to deflect all that negative stuff.
That's right.
He specifically talks about the shield of faith in Ephesians 6.16.
Yes.
He's saying that faith isn't just about bringing good things in.
Right.
It's about having a defense
Yeah.
against the bad stuff.
That's right.
His language gets really vivid here.
Oh, yeah.
He talks about quenching the devil's fiery darts. It's almost like faith is this spiritual force field.
Like a spiritual armor.
Okay, so this is what I found to be one of the most thought-provoking parts of the sermon.
Okay.
He talks about being grafted into God's divinity through faith.
Right. Yeah.
He's pulling from Romans 11.1923 here.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty wild concept.
It is.
Think about a branch from one tree being grafted onto another.
Right.
Oyedepo's saying that through faith, we can actually become part of God's nature,
Wow.
sharing in his power and authority.
That's a powerful idea.
It really is this powerful image,
Yeah.
this idea of tapping into the very source of creation.
Huh.
But he doesn't stop there.
He doesn't.
He goes on to link this to tangible results.
Right.
He talks about God's hand being on your life,
Yeah.
leading to these extraordinary accomplishments.
Right.
He uses the story of Elijah outrunning Ahab's chariot.
Uh-huh.
And he really emphasizes the supernatural speed and power that he believes faith can unlock.
Right.
He's painting this picture of divine intervention where things happen with a speed and efficiency
Right.
that would be impossible for any human.
Uh-huh.
It's like he's saying that when you're operating in faith,
Yeah.
you're not just relying on your own strength.
Right.
You've got a higher power working with you.
It's a partnership.
And this isn't just theoretical for him.
Right.
He connects this idea of divine intervention to real-life transformations.
Yeah.
He talks about Aeneas,
Right.
healed from palsy in Acts 9.3335,
Yeah.
to show how faith can turn negative situations into these positive testimonies.
Into victories.
But here's the thing, right?
Okay.
He stresses that it's not just about believing.
Right.
It's about declaring your faith out loud.
Uh-huh.
It's almost performative,
Interesting.
like an act of creation itself.
I see.
He seems to be saying that our words have this creative power,
Yeah.
that by speaking our desires,
Yeah.
we can actually shape our reality.
Powerful stuff.
And that leads us to what might be the most controversial part of his message, the whole idea of speaking your reality into existence.
Right.
He even shares personal stories,
Yeah.
like how he spoke his own health into being,
Right.
and his daughter deflected all these nosy questions about her pregnancy
Yeah.
just through spoken declarations.
Wow.
And he brings up Proverbs 18.21,
Right.
which says, death and life are in the power of the tongue,
Powerful words.
to back up this idea.
Yeah.
It's pretty fascinating.
It is.
It suggests that our words have this real impact
Uh-huh.
on the world around us.
They do.
He even goes as far as to say, I talk my way out of poverty.
Wow.
It's like our words are almost like these incantations,
Right.
but with faith is the driving force.
Interesting.
Pretty bold claim, wouldn't you say?
It's a bold claim.
It really challenges how we usually think about things.
It does.
But you know, it also lines up with this trend we're seeing,
Yeah.
even outside of religion.
Uh-huh.
Think about how popular positive affirmations are,
Right.
or manifestation techniques. There's this growing belief that our thoughts and words can really influence what happens to us.
Absolutely.
So even if you're not religious, this idea of aligning your words with the outcomes you want,
Right.
it might still resonate.
It might.
It definitely raises some interesting questions
It does.
about the power of belief and intention.
For sure.
Lots to unpack there.
Yeah.
But before we get too deep into that,
Okay.
I want to switch gears a bit
All right.
and look at another major theme in Oyedepo's message.
Okay.
This idea of standing alone and winning the war.
Right.
He uses some pretty compelling stories from the Bible to get this point across.
He does.
Like this story of Caleb,
Right.
who was absolutely convinced that they could conquer the promised land,
Yeah.
even when all the other spies were full of doubt.
Right.
He also brings up David
Mm-hmm.
facing Goliath with this unwavering faith,
Right.
believing that God would give him the victory.
Yeah.
It's like he's saying you don't need anyone else's approval.
Yeah.
You don't need everyone to agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
If you're truly convinced in your heart,
Right.
you can achieve the impossible,
You can.
even if you're standing alone.
Powerful.
It's this message of individual empowerment.
Yeah.
He's telling his listeners that they have the power within them
Through faith.
to overcome any obstacle,
Right.
to achieve anything they set their minds to.
If you believe it, you can achieve it.
And he ties this back to the idea of speaking your reality into existence.
Right.
He tells a story about his own daughter deflecting those intrusive questions about her pregnancy
Yeah.
simply by declaring, God has done it.
Wow.
It's like he's saying you don't need to argue.
Right.
You don't need to convince anyone.
Just stand firm.
Just stand firm in your faith
That's right.
and speak your truth.
Speak your truth.
He uses this really powerful phrase.
Oh, yeah.
He says, faith has capacity to stand alone with God, win the war, and take the territory and subdue the territory.
It's not just about winning a personal battle. It's about conquering entire territories,
Right.
both physical and spiritual.
And it's not just about taking territory.
Right.
It's about holding on to it.
That's right.
He talks about how even those who were skeptical of his vision for the church
Yeah.
eventually came around
They came around.
because they were surrounded by this
Yeah.
collective declaration of faith.
Advantageous.
He even says, even those of you who didn't believe you were forced to believe because you have to say,
Yeah.
you said to the point that your faith said, look, your heart say, I must believe this.
Yeah.
I can't be the odd man out. I must believe it.
Wow.
It's like he's saying, even if you start from a place of doubt,
Right.
if you keep speaking it,
Yeah.
keep declaring it,
Keep affirming it.
eventually your belief will catch up.
Yeah.
It's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's
Yeah.
a fascinating psychological thing.
It is.
He's recognizing the power of repetition and affirmation,
Yeah.
even if it starts with skepticism.
Uh-huh.
And he connects this to the importance of speaking your faith boldly. He says, if you can't say it boldly, God will confirm it openly.
Yeah.
He shares all these personal examples of how
Precisely.
he's spoken things into existence,
Right.
from his health
Uh-huh.
to his finances.
Right. Powerful.
He talks about how people laughed at him
Yeah.
when he first started declaring that he would never be sick.
They mocked him.
He says, they were wrinkling their noses,
Yeah.
but I'm still here. Yes, sir. I don't know where they are now, sir, but I'm still here.
Wow.
It's such a powerful image.
It is.
He's standing there years later
Yeah.
as proof of his unwavering faith,
Living proof.
while all his doubters have faded away.
It's really something.
And it all boils down to this core message.
Yeah.
If you can believe it,
Right.
you can achieve it.
If you can believe it, you can achieve it.
He says, faith is saying with the mouth and refusing to doubt it in your heart. If you can't say it boldly, he will not confirm it openly.
That's powerful.
He's really urging his followers to be bold in their declarations,
Right.
to not be afraid to speak their dreams and desires into existence.
Speak it into being.
He even encourages them to call their miracles into being.
He does.
He says, call your healing into being. Call your deliverance into being. Call your miracle job into being. Call your miracle marriage into being. Your Father is also the marriage maker. You cannot remain unmarried, beggar.
Wow.
He's painting this picture of a God
Yeah.
who's eager to bless his children,
Uh-huh.
a God who wants to see them prosper and succeed.
He does.
And he's saying that the only thing standing between them and their blessings
Yeah.
is their own lack of faith.
That's right.
He even declares, your miracle children are here.
Yeah.
Your breakthrough in life is released. Your spiritual life is rescued from the hands of the enemy.
Wow.
It's a message that's really meant to resonate with anyone
Right.
who's facing challenges or
Yeah.
feeling hopeless.
Uh-huh.
He's offering this path to victory,
A way out.
a way out,
It's through faith.
all through faith.
That's right.
But he's also making it very clear that faith isn't passive.
Right.
It takes action.
It does.
It demands boldness.
Right.
It means speaking your desires into existence.
That's right.
He's not just telling them to believe.
Yeah.
He's telling them to act on that belief,
To step out in faith.
to step out in faith and claim their blessings.
It makes you wonder,
It does.
what if he's right?
What if the power to change our lives
Yeah.
really is within us,
Uh-huh.
in our ability to believe and to speak our reality into existence?
What if?
It's a fascinating thought,
It is.
and one that definitely deserves more exploration.
It does.
But before we go too far down that rabbit hole,
Okay.
let's step back for a minute.
All right.
And remember, this is just one perspective.
It is.
There are so many different ways to understand faith and its power.
Absolutely.
It's up to each person to decide what resonates with them.
That's right. Picking up where we left off, I think it's really interesting how Oyedepo connects this idea of personal empowerment through faith to this bigger idea of dominion.
Right.
Almost like a spiritual mandate. Right. He talks about subduing kingdoms and taking territories.
Mm-hmm.
It's this language that evokes this feeling of conquering the world through faith.
Yeah, he uses that example of Daniel in Babylon,
Right.
saying that Daniel basically subdued the land
Yeah.
through his faith in God.
Right.
He even pulls from Psalms, quoting Psalm 87.5-7, where it says, the Almighty himself shall establish her.
Wow.
It's like he's suggesting that God is going to work through believers
Right.
to establish his kingdom here on earth.
Yeah, to bring about his will.
And it's not just about individual success, it's
Yeah.
about the collective dominion of the church,
Yeah.
especially when you think about what he sees as the end times.
Right, the end times.
He believes that faith is the key to bringing about this global transformation.
Right.
It's a powerful message,
It is.
especially when you consider the context.
Yeah.
He's talking to this congregation in Nigeria,
Right, yeah.
a country facing a lot of challenges. And he's offering them this vision of hope and agency
Yeah.
through faith.
Yeah, hope for the future.
Makes you wonder what kind of impact this has on people who are struggling for
Correct.
searching for answers.
Yeah.
I think it really speaks to this human desire for empowerment,
Yeah.
this need to feel like we have some control
Mm-hmm.
in a world that can often feel so chaotic and unpredictable.
Absolutely. We all want to feel like we have some say in what happens to us.
And he's so good at tapping into that desire,
Oh, yeah, he's a master.
weaving together those personal anecdotes and biblical stories
Right.
and powerful rhetoric
It's all very deliberate.
to create this compelling narrative.
He's a great storyteller.
He doesn't just preach.
Yeah.
He performs.
He does.
He uses humor,
Mm-hmm.
dramatic pauses.
Right.
He even imitates the voices of his critics
Yeah.
to really drive home his points.
He knows how to work a crowd.
And the performance aspect is so key.
It is.
He understands the power of engaging his audience,
Yeah.
of making them feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves.
Part of a movement.
He even has these moments of collective declaration
Oh, yeah.
where the whole congregation repeats these key phrases.
It's powerful.
It reinforces this idea that they're all united
Yes.
in their faith and their pursuit of dominion.
It's like a shared experience.
It's such a brilliant use of social reinforcement.
It is.
When you're surrounded by thousands of people saying the same thing,
Right.
it's hard not to get swept up in that energy and conviction.
It's contagious.
Okay, so we've talked about faith as a force,
Yeah.
faith as a partnership,
Right.
faith as a shield.
Uh-huh.
But I want to come back to this idea of speaking your reality into existence,
Okay.
because it seems to be like a core part of Oyedepo's message.
Absolutely. It's fundamental to his teaching.
And he really emphasizes that it's not just about the words themselves.
Right.
It's about the belief behind them.
The unwavering belief.
Yeah, the unshakable conviction.
That's right.
He tells that story about how his daughter was able to deflect all those prying questions about her pregnancy
Right.
just by declaring God has done it.
Powerful.
He even says faith has capacity to stand alone with God, win the war, and take the territory and subdue the territory.
Oh.
It's like he's saying you don't have to argue, you don't have to get into debates.
Don't waste your time trying to convince anyone.
You just have to hold on to your
Right
faith
fast.
and speak your reality into existence.
Declare it.
And he backs this up with all those personal stories
He does.
about speaking his own health into existence
Right.
and overcoming financial struggles by declaring abundance.
He's a living testament to his own teachings.
He's basically saying, I've done it and you can too.
Right. He's walking the walk.
It's a bold claim.
Very bold.
I'm really curious what our listener thinks about this.
Yeah.
Does this whole idea of speaking your reality into existence resonate with you?
Right.
Have you ever tried it?
What were your experiences?
It's a fascinating concept,
It is.
and one that seems to be gaining traction,
Yeah,
even outside of traditional religious
for
context.
sure.
Think about how popular manifestation techniques are,
Right.
or the law of attraction.
It's everywhere these days.
It's like there's this growing belief
Mm-hmm.
that our thoughts and words have this power to shape our reality.
Absolutely.
But Oyedepo takes it a step further.
Yes.
He doesn't just talk about attracting the good stuff.
Right.
He also talks about using this power to overcome negative forces,
Yeah, to fight back.
to win those spiritual battles.
All right.
He brings up the shield of faith, again, from Ephesians 6.16,
Yes.
arguing that faith isn't just about attracting good things.
Right.
It's also about defending yourself against the bad stuff.
Having that protection.
And he ties this to the importance of speaking your faith with confidence.
Boldly.
He says, if you can't say it boldly, God will confirm it openly.
It's about the conviction behind your words.
It's like he's saying, the more conviction you have,
Yeah.
the more power your words have.
The more effective they are.
He uses some really strong imagery here,
Oh, yeah.
talking about quenching the devil's fiery darts
Yeah.
and overcoming demonic attacks
Right.
through these declarations of faith.
Intense.
Like he sees words as weapons in this spiritual war.
spiritual warfare.
It definitely paints a very dramatic picture.
It does.
But even if you're not into the whole spiritual warfare thing,
Right.
there's still something interesting here
Yours.
about using spoken word to shift your mindset,
Uh-huh.
to boost your courage,
To attract what you want.
to attract what you want.
Yeah.
He even goes as far as to tell his followers
Yeah.
to call their miracles into being.
That's right.
He says, call your healing into being. Call your deliverance into being. Call your miracle job into being. Call your miracle marriage into being. Your father is also the marriage maker. You cannot remain unmarried beggar.
It's a powerful call to action.
It is.
He's challenging them to step out in faith and claim those blessings.
He's really emphasizing this idea of taking ownership of your life.
Right.
Of not just waiting for things to happen,
Might be passive.
but actively shaping your reality
That's right.
through your beliefs and your words.
Absolutely.
And it connects back to that message of dominion.
Yeah.
He believes that through faith,
Right.
believers can overcome any obstacle
Anything.
and establish God's kingdom here on earth.
It's a bold vision.
But he knows the doubt can be powerful too.
Oh, yeah.
He talks about how even those who didn't believe in his vision for the church at first
Right.
ended up believing
It came around.
because they were constantly surrounded by this collective declaration of faith.
It's hard to resist that kind of energy.
He even says, even those of you who didn't believe you were forced to believe because you have to say, you said to the point that your faith said, look, your heart say, I must believe this. I can't be the odd man out. I must believe it.
It's like peer pressure for belief,
Right.
but in a positive way.
It's like he's saying, even if you don't believe it first,
Yeah.
if you keep saying it, if you
Mhm.
keep declaring it,
Keep affirming it.
eventually your belief will catch up.
Interesting.
It's a fascinating concept.
It is.
It makes you think about the power of suggestion
Right.
and the role of social influence
Yeah, how our environment shapes our beliefs.
in shaping what we believe.
Absolutely.
And speaking of environment,
Okay.
I think it's important to remember
Yeah.
that Oyedepo is speaking to a particular audience
Right.
in a very specific cultural context.
Of course.
His message might not land the same way
It might not.
with people from different backgrounds.
Different cultures, different experiences.
And that's something we always want to keep in mind
We do.
as we explore these ideas.
Absolutely.
So we're not here to endorse any one belief system,
Right.
but to unpack the ideas,
Analyze the rhetoric.
analyze the rhetoric,
Encourage critical thinking.
and encourage critical thinking.
That's right.
So as we continue to unpack this whole idea of speaking your reality into existence,
Okay.
let's think about some alternative perspectives
Right.
and explore the potential pitfalls
Sure.
as well as the potential benefits.
Yeah. It's a complex topic.
What do you think?
Sounds good. But before we get into that, I think it's worth highlighting another key part of Oyedepo's message.
Okay.
This idea of gratitude and consistent action.
Right.
He uses this really interesting analogy
Oh, yeah.
comparing faith to a seed.
Okay, let's hear it. Picking up from that seed analogy, right? Oyedepo says, if your seed lacks water, it will die.
Right.
What do you think he means by that?
I think he's saying that just believing isn't enough. You have to put in the work. You have to give your faith the right conditions to grow.
So it's not enough to just sit back and hope for the best?
Exactly. It's about taking action.
And he really emphasizes the importance of consistency.
Yeah, he says, I keep saying nobody can kill me. 1 billion demons can't.
So even when doubts creep in,
Yeah, those doubts are always going to be there.
you have to keep nurturing your faith.
Right. Keep speaking those desires into existence.
It's like a spiritual workout.
It is. You have to keep exercising that faith muscle to make it stronger.
But he doesn't just talk about action.
Right.
He also talks about gratitude.
Yeah, he says, you are already doing it. You're saying it is watering what you have done.
What's he getting at there?
I think he's reminding people to be thankful for what they already have, to acknowledge the good things in their lives, even while they're working towards those bigger goals.
So don't just focus on what's missing.
Exactly. Celebrate what you've already got.
And that feeling of gratitude actually strengthens your faith.
It does, like a positive feedback loop.
Right. The more you appreciate, the more you believe. And the more you believe, the more you have to be grateful for.
It's a pretty powerful cycle.
It's a really smart way to stay motivated.
Absolutely. It keeps you focused on the positive.
So we've seen how Oyedepo presents faith as this powerful force
Yeah.
for transforming your life, for achieving dominion in every area,
Right.
and ultimately for shaping your reality.
He's painted a very compelling picture.
He has. Even if someone doesn't subscribe to his religious beliefs,
Right.
are there any takeaways here that might resonate with a wider audience?
I think so. His language is very rooted in Christian theology.
Yeah, for sure.
But those core principles he talks about,
Right.
believe, positive affirmation-focused intention.
Those have much broader applications.
Absolutely. We see those ideas everywhere these days.
Right.
Self-help, psychology business even.
It's like he's tapped into this universal human desire,
Yeah.
this need to shape our own destinies,
To feel like we have some control.
to have some control over those unpredictable parts of life.
Exactly.
Whether you call it faith or manifestation or the power of positive thinking,
It's all connected.
there's this deep human need to believe
Yeah.
that we can influence our own outcomes.
To believe that we're not just along for the ride.
That we're not just passive passengers in our own lives.
Right. We have agency.
And I think that's what makes his message so powerful,
It is.
even for people who might not be religious.
It speaks to that desire for something better.
It speaks to that deep desire to create a better reality for ourselves.
Absolutely. And I think it also highlights the power of storytelling
Yeah,
and rhetoric.
for sure.
The way he weaves together those personal stories and biblical
And
examples,
those powerful declarations.
it creates a really engaging experience.
It's emotionally resonant.
He's a master communicator.
He really is. He knows how to connect with people,
He does.
to inspire them, to motivate them.
It's really something.
Makes you wonder, what is it about these kinds of messages?
Right.
These ideas of faith and dominion?
Yeah.
Why do they resonate so deeply with people?
What is it about that need for control, that search for meaning?
Those are some great questions.
They are.
And probably not ones with easy answers.
Not at all.
But I think that's what makes a deep dive like this so interesting.
I agree.
It's not about finding all the answers.
It's about exploring the question.
It's about sparking that curiosity.
Encouraging people to think critically.
And maybe even challenging some of our own assumptions.
Right. Question everything.
So we've covered a lot of ground today,
We have.
from faith as a force to speaking your reality into existence.
It's been a journey.
We've explored some pretty mind-blowing concepts.
Definitely thought-provoking.
Big thanks to you, the listener, for sending us this sermon by Bishop Oyedepo.
Yeah, it's been fascinating.
It's been a really thought-provoking journey.
It has.
And hopefully it's given you some new insights and questions to ponder as well.
Maybe even some new tools to try out.
And remember, this is just one perspective.
That's right.
There are so many different ways to understand faith and its power.
We encourage you to keep exploring those ideas
Keep searching for those different viewpoints.
and come to your own conclusions.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
We'll see you next time.
Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep diving deep.